Shining Bright Lotus.
Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be continuing our study of the Faces of Compassion, and we are going to be looking at Manjushri, who's the Bodhisattva of wisdom and insight. So the name Manjushri means noble or the gentle one, which is ironic really, because he's usually depicted looking rather fierce, wielding this large sword above his head. It's said that Manjushri penetrates into the fundamental emptiness or the universal sameness and true nature of all things. He's able to see into the essence of each phenomenal event, the essential nature that nothing has any fixed existence separate to itself or separate in itself, or of course independent from the world around it. So in the Dharma teachings, the work of wisdom or prajna is to see through the illusionary self-other dichotomy, or to see things through our imagined estrangement from the world. It's to truly recognize that we are not separate. So it's Manjushri that embodies this paramita of prajna, or the perfection of wisdom. Manjushri is often depicted riding on a lion, which is, of course, recognized as probably one of the most kingly of animals. And this is meant to show us that Manjushri's princely nature, his nobility, and his fearlessness. Interestingly, the seat that the Buddha sits on is often called the lion's throne, and that's not a coincidence. And of course, the Buddha's words are often described as the lion's roar, again, not a coincidence. And of course, Lion's Roar is also the name of a famous Buddhist website and magazine that many of you may subscribe to. So there's this very clear analogy linking the Buddha and Manjushri in terms of their wisdom. Now, the lion that Manjushri sits upon never actually appears to look fierce as we'd expect a lion to be. He's actually often depicted looking rather docile, rather calm, for a lion at least. And that's because the ferociousness we'd expect to see from the lion is often found on the face of Manjushri instead. And it's this fierceness combined with his wielding of this large sword above his head that often creates the impression of a rather dangerous or violent person. And if you were walking down the street and some guy on a lion wielding a sword came towards you, you'd be probably pretty worried. But this is actually depicting someone who is cutting through the entanglement of ignorance, conquering all doubts and confusion, cutting things into two, or to be more accurate, using prajna language, cutting things into one. So Manjushri is showing us that the path of wisdom demands such a sword, because our self-created obstacles of ignorance are often so persistent and so stubborn. We often need additional help to help us see through them. And again, along with the sword, which he generally holds in his right hand, in his left hand, he often holds a scroll, which is usually representing the Prajna Paramita text, the text of wisdom. Sometimes you'll see iconography where he has the text on his head, or in other icons, he may actually have no text and no sword and be looking rather peaceful. But one of his main roles is as the Bodhisattva of poetry or oratory or writing, pretty much anything to do with language. And if you think about it, language is one of the primary catalysts of our human ignorance and our delusion. Much of our delusion comes or is certainly exasperated by the language that we use. Our thought processes are established and learned through our language. Our sense of separation is strengthened and taught through the syntax or the word order that separates subject and object. So language is often why we fail to recognize the interconnectedness of everything. the world that we live in. So Manjushri works to reveal our enslavement by language, and to liberate language and use it to express the deeper realities. Anyone that's hung around Engo for a while or watched a Rupert Spira video will understand what we're talking about, and the power of language in creating our own delusions. So Manjushri often appears in many sutras, eloquently posing questions to the Buddha on behalf of the assembly, and then eliciting responses from him to clarify the essence of the teachings. For example, in the discourse of the Parameter of Wisdom, the Buddha asks Manjushri a question. He asks him, how should one abide in the Parameter of Wisdom when cultivating it? And what follows is a fascinating insight into shunyata, or into emptiness. In fact, I will put this on the screen. It'll be easier to follow. So in the discourse of the Parameter of Wisdom, the Buddha asked Manjushri, how should one abide in the Parameter of Wisdom when cultivating it? Manjushri answered, abiding in no dharma is abiding in the Parameter of Wisdom. The Buddha asked Manjushri further, why is abiding in no dharma called abiding in the Parameter of Wisdom? Manjushri answered, because to have no notion of abiding is to abide in the Parameter of Wisdom. The Buddha asked Manjushri further, if one thus abides in the Parameter of Wisdom, will his good roots increase or decrease? Manjushri answered, if one thus abides in the Parameter of Wisdom, his good roots will not increase or decrease, nor will any dharma, nor will the Parameter of Wisdom increase or decrease in nature or characteristic. World-honored one who thus cultivates the Parameter of Wisdom will not reject the dharmas of ordinary people, nor cling to the dharma of saints and sages. Why? Because in the light of the Parameter of Wisdom, there are no dharmas to cling to or reject. Moreover, one who cultivates the Parameter of Wisdom in this way will not delight in nirvana or detest samsara. Why? Because he realizes there is no samsara, let alone rejection of it, and no nirvana, let alone attachment to it. World-honored one, to see that no dharma arises or ceases is to cultivate the Parameter of Wisdom. To see that no dharma increases or decreases is to cultivate the Parameter of Wisdom. To aspire to nothing and to see that nothing can be grasped is to cultivate the Parameter of Wisdom. Furthermore, if a person which cultivating the Parameter of Wisdom does not see any Parameter of Wisdom and finds neither any Buddha Dharma to grasp, nor any dharmas of ordinary people to reject, that person is really cultivating the Parameter of Wisdom. That should give you a nosebleed. So, in this discussion, we see that Manjushri is literally cutting through the conventional conceptions of, and also the attachments to, things like abiding, increasing and decreasing, ordinary and holy, nirvana and samara, arising and ceasing, aspiring and grasping. And just like Manjushri, our work is to see through and also then to become liberated from all these limited views and these common snares of our consciousness, which our own language often helps us to create. Again, if you've read the book or if you're not familiar with the chapter yet, in the end of the chapter, there's a section in the book that discusses exemplars of Manjushri's archetype. It includes people like Albert Einstein, Bob Dylan, the Irish author James Joyce. I'd encourage you to read that section later. It's quite interesting, but instead of discussing them, I personally think it's more useful to examine how we can exemplify this Manjushri energy. How can we exemplify it in our own life or in our own being? Because ultimately it's about us and our own awakening. So firstly, and probably most importantly, we want to learn to cultivate wisdom through our own study and through our own reflection. We want to start by studying the Buddhist scriptures, particularly those that focus on the nature of the mind, those which focus on emptiness or shunyata, those that focus on the dependent origination. These texts often offer deep insights into the nature of our reality. And of course, a good place to start would be the Heart Sutra or the Diamond Sutra. In our morning service later, Ekai will chant the Heart Sutra and will, of course, chant along with him. So pay attention to the words that you're chanting. Don't just chant by rote. Often in the morning service, we can find ourselves just blah, 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 where the words are coming out, but nobody's home. So really listen to those words that you are chanting. That one sutra, the Heart Sutra, is all you need to wake up. Literally nothing else. That's it. Once you get the Heart Sutra, boom, you've got it. So contemplate the teachings. Now, often wisdom isn't just learned through reading and chanting, but through deep reflection. So after reading or chanting, take time to reflect, take time to meditate on the teachings and begin to integrate them into your own life. Meditate on emptiness, meditate on shunyata. Meditating on emptiness can help you break free from attachments. It can help you break free from the mental clutter that causes suffering. Learn to observe your thoughts as they begin to arise without actually getting attached to them. And again, the more you can do this, the more wisdom you'll develop in recognizing how transient and how impermanent everything is. So work on reducing the mental habits that cloud your perception. Habits such as anger, greed, or ignorance. Manjushri's wisdom helps us to recognize that suffering arises from these afflictions. Again, you're probably familiar with the three poisons. So learn to see them for what they truly are, which of course is temporary at the mind's surface and ultimately illusory. It's also a very good practice to learn to live with compassion, what we would call karuna. Now, again, that can be hard in this political climate that we currently find ourselves in, but of course it's not impossible. So again, realize that wisdom and compassion are inseparable. While Manjushri is often associated with wisdom, in the broader context of Buddhism and especially the Mahayana tradition, wisdom is always paired with compassion. So the wisdom that you cultivate should not be used to distance yourself from others, but to help them understand their suffering and respond with kindness. And of course, now we're entering into the territory of the Bodhisattva ideal. So if you don't already practice the metta meditations or the loving kindness meditations, I would encourage you to practice that daily. If you're not familiar with it, any of the priests on this call should be able to teach you. So reach out. Begin to practice it daily. It's a very, very simple but very, very powerful practice. As we send loving kindness into the world, first of all to ourselves, then to our loved ones, then to maybe neutral people, and then of course to our so-called enemies. So in closing, to apply Manjushri's teachings is to live with wisdom, to live with his wisdom. It's to develop a mind that is sharp, that is clear, that is free from ignorance. which again will ultimately allow us to live more skillfully, to make wiser choices, and to act with compassion towards ourselves and, of course, towards others. Thank you.
Shining Bright Lotus.